Welcome to Ray Reads, a podcast where I discuss the books I'm currently reading. For this episode of Ray Reads, I will be discussing Eragon, Book 1 of the Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. I have heard some criticism about this book being derivative. I guess people say that Eragon copies The Lord of the Rings. I have not yet read The Lord of the Rings, so I can't tell you exactly how far the similarities go. Regardless, I do not have an issue with Eragon possibly being an unoriginal story. I like a good, unique story as much as the next guy, but, the world has hundreds of variations of the same story told over and over again, and I do not think that is a bad thing. The variations of a tale as old as time often bring out at least one small new element to the table. These stories are never exactly the same, they merely share many common elements. Many stories have obvious inspiration from others. In the young adult genre alone, I would say there are several overused cliches, tropes, and repeated stories. You cannot escape it. All I am trying to say is that unoriginal is not necessarily bad. What defines a good book is more than simply its level of uniqueness. Now, on to the actual story here. Eragon is not a love story, and I want to make this clear right from the start with Book 1. The Inheritance Cycle is not a love story, and it will never become a traditional love story. The elf Arya may be presented as a potential love interest, but think of Eragon's reaction when they first meet face to face in Gilead. He describes his budding feelings as an intense obsession. When Angela the herbalist foretells his future, she foresees an uncertain romantic relationship. This story will continue on to play with the potential of love, but it will never come to full fruition. The Inheritance Cycle is not a love story, and that is exactly what I love about it. That isn't to say that this is a loveless tale all across the board, however. Eragon loves his two father figures, Garrow, his uncle, and Brom, the storyteller. It is tragic how in such a short span of time he loses the only fathers he ever knew. The loss of these men is what primarily fuels Eragon's passion as a dragon rider in his fight against the Empire. Another source of motivation is Eragon's hatred for slavery and injustice. While he roams the streets of Drosleona, Eragon locates a slave auction. Witnessing this atrocity finally allows him to recognize his purpose as a dragon rider. In this moment, he is inspired by more than personal vengeance. I did find it odd, though, later on, when Eragon and Murtagh are attacked by a band of slavers, and Eragon wants to spare the man's life. Why does he feel so inclined to show a slaver mercy? Are the slaver's actions truly forgivable? I do not believe that one can justify slavery, so I am siding with Murtagh on this one. He makes the right call here, and he does not deserve to have Eragon's self-righteous anger directed at him. Murtagh is the most tragic character in this tale. I am very interested in learning more about his backstory. His own father threw a sword at Murtagh when he was only 3 years old. This somewhat reminds me of Magnus from the Fallen Kingdoms series by Morgan Rhodes. But I think It is interesting that Murtagh wishes to reclaim his father's sword, Zarok, which had left him with the old scar on his back. I love how this book ends with Eragon noting that he and Murtagh are now twins, in a sense, with their matching back scars. I appreciate the subtle symbolism and connection between them. I hope that Murtagh will have a greater role in the following books. On a lesser note, real quick, it bothers me how the Razak only hiss sometimes. Their hiss is a distinctive aspect to their dialogue, yet the hissing seems to be rather inconsistent. I mean, they do not hiss on every single S, only some of them for some reason. I guess that the hissing would be unbearable if they truly hissed all the time. There is supposed to be a new Eragon TV series in development now. Personally, I am cautiously hopeful about this. I mean, can it really get any worse than the 2006 Eragon movie? Don't get me wrong, I actually loved this movie when I was a little kid. And I must admit, I do love it still, if only for the sake of nostalgia. This movie was the whole reason I read the books in the first place. But the movie is wildly different from the book, and the differences are strikingly apparent right from the start. The first thing I noticed was the change to Sloane's character. The butcher is afraid of the king and his soldiers instead of the spine. He is also a lot less hateful in this story. He does not sell out Eragon for finding the mysterious blue stone. Instead, the butcher is tortured and then killed by the Razak. Now, the Razak and the Urgles, for that matter, are not at all like how they are described in the book. The way that the movie portrays the Razak like ninjas makes me laugh. If I were to venture a guess, I would say that they used up their budget on Saphira, who is voiced by Rachel Weisz from The Mummy. So the Razak end up as these two guys dressed in black rags. They don't even look intimidating, so they are easily killed off. So many characters are changed in the movie. Roran isn't even in a relationship, and so he leaves Carvajal in order to join the military. Horst lost his two sons, Albrecht and Baldur. Angela, the herbalist, is a sexy fortune teller, and she's not very eccentric. The werecat Solomon isn't even there. Angela does not join the Varden. The twins and the dwarf Auric are also not in the story, much less a part of the Varden. And then the Battle of Farthendur isn't even completely underground. For some reason, there's this huge opening in the Bior Mountains now. But these are only the minor characters. It is time to discuss what this movie did to the main characters. First off, there are several changes with Saphira. She grows into a full-size dragon in mere seconds. She looks much rounder and has no spikes. And then Saphira names herself without any inspiration, as though she inherently knew her name all along. Saphira also learns early how to breathe fire when she toasts some Urgles. And in the end, it is Saphira, not Eragon, who suffers a great injury. And And then Murtagh claims that the Empire slaughtered his family. In Farthendur, Murtagh is immediately imprisoned, and he is not released for the battle. He has to break free in order to assist the Varden. I do not like how Murtagh's secret is exposed rather than him confiding in Eragon. As for Eragon, when he first makes contact with Saphira and is marked, the Gedwe Ignacia is red, not silver. The moment Eragon is chosen as a dragon rider, Brom, Arya, and Galbatorix instantly know. In the end, Eragon is supposed to lead the Varden without first traveling to finish his training in Elismira. Arya disappoints me. The movie reduces her to a damsel in distress. After her rescue, she does not enter a self-induced coma. She is wide awake when Brom dies. She could have saved Brom. Even if she could not access her own magic, she could have instructed Eragon on the proper healing spell. Brom did not have to die in this case. And in the end, Arya does not even save Eragon either. And I think there is a greater hint of a romance between them with the movie ending. Eragon's visions of Arya are different too. The first vision is a flashback of Arya transporting the Blue Stone. The next vision is a manipulation from the Shade Durza. In this one, Arya spins around and prances through the forest. Durza reveals that Arya is secretly a princess of the elves. So, yet another secret is exposed. The one thing that I like about Brom is that he is played by Jeremy Irons, the actor who voices Scar from The Lion King. The movie version of Brom is terrible. After Uncle Garrow is murdered by the Razak, Brom is the one who burns the farm down. When Eragon protests and states that Garrow should have a proper funeral, Brom starts the fire and proclaims it's a funeral fit for a king. He is uncharacteristically unkind to Eragon. Unlike in the book, Brom does not grant Eragon the freedom to choose his own path. He pushes Eragon to join the Varden. And then Durza deals the fatal blow since the Razak have already been slain. I think it is after the Razak are killed that Eragon discovers Brom's secret. This movie just hates people trusting and confiding in one another and loves exposing secrets. Although I do have to admit that I appreciate how Brom dies while flying one last time. It would have been more meaningful, though, if the movie had acknowledged that Eragon's Saphira is named after Brom's deceased dragon. Long story short, the movie and the book are two totally different stories. Sometimes, movies can outshine the original source. But that definitely is not the case here. The book is good at least, and I always enjoy reading it.